They sought angels. Humanity sent relentless guardians. Instead, the Zephyrian delegation had traveled 47 light-years to reach Earth, their crystalline ships cutting through space with the grace of cosmic dancers. Their homeworld was dying, consumed by an ancient plague that turned their silicon-based bodies into brittle dust. The cure lay in the mythical healing abilities they had heard whispered across the galaxy, tales of beings called humans who possessed an almost supernatural capacity for restoration and protection. Ambassador Veltar stood at the viewport of their lead vessel, watching the blue marble grow larger. According to intercepted transmissions, humans were known throughout several star systems as the Healers and the Protectors. Stories spoke of human medical teams who could resurrect the dying, human peacekeepers who ended conflicts with mere words, and human scientists who could breathe life back into barren worlds. Surely, Veltar whispered in their musical language, these must be the angels our ancestors spoke of in the old texts. The Zephyrian fleet consisted of 12 ships, each carrying 1,000 of their people, the last survivors of their species. Their bodies, naturally transparent like living glass, had begun showing the telltale cracks of the plague. Time was running out. When they sent their first communication to Earth, the response came faster than expected. A calm voice speaking perfect Zephyrian welcomed them and invited them to approach. The speaker identified himself as Admiral Chen Martinez of the Terran Defense Corps. "We've been expecting someone like you," the Admiral said, his words somehow carrying both warmth and steel. "We've heard about your situation through our deep space monitoring networks. Permission granted to approach Earth. Medical and relief teams are already being prepared." Veltar felt hope flutter in their crystalline chest. The humans not only knew of their plight, but were already mobilizing to help. Surely these were the benevolent angels their species needed. As their ships entered the solar system, they were met by a sight that took their breath away. Dozens of human vessels flanked them, not in an aggressive formation, but in what appeared to be an honor guard. Each ship was massive, their hulls bearing scars that spoke of countless battles, yet they moved with protective grace around the Zephyrian fleet. "Beautiful, aren't they?" came Admiral Martinez's voice. "Those are our Guardian-class vessels. Each one has saved hundreds of worlds, protected millions of lives. They'll escort you safely to Earth." The lead Guardian ship, identified as the UES Prometheus, pulled alongside the Zephyrian flagship. Through the viewport, Veltar could see human figures moving with purpose across the ship's bridge. They looked so small, so fragile compared to the Zephyrians' towering crystalline forms, yet something about their movements spoke of absolute determination. Admiral Martinez appeared on their communication screen, and Veltar was surprised by what they saw. The human was older than expected, his dark hair streaked with silver, his face marked by laugh lines and worry lines in equal measure. But his eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies' worth of experience. "Ambassador Veltar," the Admiral said, somehow knowing exactly whom he was addressing despite this being their first visual contact. "I want you to know that your people are under human protection now. Nothing, and I mean nothing, will harm them while they're in our care." "We are grateful, Admiral," Veltar replied, their voice carrying harmonics of hope. "Our research indicated that humans are known as great healers, gifted with almost divine abilities to restore life and bring peace. We have traveled so far seeking your help." Something flickered across the Admiral's face, an expression Veltar couldn't quite interpret. "We are indeed known for our healing abilities," he said carefully, "though perhaps not in the way you might expect. Tell me, Ambassador, what exactly threatens your people? What has brought your entire species to the edge of extinction?" Veltar explained about the plague, about how their crystal-based physiology was slowly crumbling, turning their people into dust. They spoke of failed attempts to find a cure, of the slow death of their civilization as their numbers dwindled. "And you believe we can heal this?" Martinez asked. "The stories say that humans can work miracles," Veltar said. "That you have powers beyond normal understanding, that you protect the innocent and heal the sick with abilities that border on the divine." Martinez was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made the very air seem heavier. "Ambassador, we will indeed protect your people. We will heal them if it's within our power. But I need you to understand something about humans that might not have made it into those stories you heard." "What do you mean?" "We are healers, yes. We are protectors, certainly. But we're not angels, Veltar. When something threatens those under our protection, when something tries to harm the innocent..." Martinez paused, and in that pause, Veltar caught a glimpse of something vast and implacable in the human's eyes. "When that happens, we become something else entirely." As if summoned by his words, alerts began chiming on both ships. A massive energy signature had appeared at the edge of the solar system, something big, aggressive, and moving fast toward Earth. "Admiral," came a crisp voice from somewhere off-screen on the human ship. "Long-range sensors are picking up a Devourer hive fleet. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Looks like they followed the Zephyrian trail." Veltar felt their crystalline form begin to resonate with terror. The Devourers were the plague. Not a disease, but a species. They had been hunting the Zephyrians across space, consuming their crystal-based biology to fuel their own horrible reproduction. The delegation had hoped they had escaped, but apparently they had only led the monsters to a new feeding ground. "Admiral, I'm so sorry," Veltar began, their voice cracking with harmonics of despair. "We never meant to bring danger to your world. The Devourers, they're the source of our plague. They followed us. We should leave immediately to draw them away." "No," Martinez said, and that single word carried such absolute authority that it seemed to stop time itself. "Ambassador, I told you that your people are under human protection now. That means something very specific." The Admiral's face had changed. The warmth was still there, but it was now backed by something that made Veltar's crystalline structure resonate with a mixture of awe and primal fear. "You see, Ambassador, the stories you heard about humans, they weren't wrong. We are indeed known throughout the galaxy for our healing abilities. We're famous for our protection of innocent life. But there's something else we're known for, something that doesn't make it into the pleasant stories that peaceful species tell each other." On the screen, alerts continued to cascade as the human fleet moved into formation. Veltar could see through the viewport as the Guardian ships began to transform. Weapons systems emerging from what had seemed like peaceful hulls, armor plating shifting to cover vulnerable areas. "When something threatens those we've sworn to protect," Martinez continued, his voice now carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in Veltar's very bones, "humans become the most relentless, unstoppable force in the galaxy. We don't just drive off threats, Ambassador. We eliminate them, completely, permanently. And we don't stop, ever, until the job is done." The transformation happening around them was breathtaking and terrifying. Ships that had seemed like gentle giants were revealing themselves to be sleeping titans of war. The humans moving across their bridges now moved with the fluid precision of apex predators who had suddenly caught scent of prey. "The Devourers made a mistake when they followed you here," Martinez said, and now his smile was sharp enough to cut crystal. "They're about to learn why peaceful species across the galaxy sleep better, knowing that humanity stands guard. They're about to discover what happens when angels decide to become something much, much more dangerous." As the Admiral signed off to coordinate the defense, Veltar realized with a mixture of terror and overwhelming relief that their species had indeed found their angels. But these angels came armed with fury, determination, and an apparently inexhaustible capacity for protective violence. The Devourers were coming to feed. But they were about to encounter something they had never faced before, humans who had decided that feeding time was over. The Devourer hive fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of mechanical locusts, their biomechanical ships pulsing with sickly bioluminescence. Veltar watched in horror from the bridge of the UES Prometheus as the enemy fleet spread across space, hundreds of vessels, each one designed for a single purpose, consuming other life forms to fuel their endless reproduction. "Sweet crystalline gods," whispered Veltar's aide, their harmonic voice cracking with fear. "There are so many of them. Admiral Martinez, you must evacuate your people. The Devourers don't negotiate, they don't retreat, they only consume until nothing remains." Admiral Martinez stood at the center of the human ship's bridge. And Veltar noticed something extraordinary happening around him. Every human on the bridge was moving with absolute precision. Their earlier warmth replaced by something that made the Zephyrian's crystalline body resonate with instinctive recognition, the aura of apex predators who had found their purpose. "Evacuation?" Martinez said, his voice now carrying a quality that seemed to make the ship itself listen. "Ambassador, you misunderstand the situation. Earth isn't being evacuated. Earth is being defended, and when humans defend something, we don't do it halfway." The Admiral touched a control, and suddenly the main screen displayed what looked like every human ship in the solar system. There weren't dozens, as Veltar had initially thought. There were thousands. They had been hidden behind planets, asteroids, and stealth fields, waiting. "You see, Ambassador," Martinez continued, "we've been tracking the Devourers for decades. We know what they do to crystal-based life forms. We know they've consumed 17 different civilizations. We know they consider themselves the ultimate predators in this galaxy." His smile was sharp enough to cut diamond. "They're about to learn they're wrong." A new voice crackled over the communications system, young, female, carrying an accent Veltar didn't recognize. "Admiral, this is Captain Sarah Chen aboard the UES Retribution. All Ghost Fleet vessels are in position and ready to dance. Just give us the word, sir." "Captain," Martinez replied, "you are cleared to show our guests what human protection looks like. All vessels, execute Guardian Protocol 7. Veltar had never heard of Guardian Protocol 7, but the effect was immediate and terrifying. The space around Earth suddenly erupted with weapons fire that defied everything the Zephyrian knew about military combat. Human ships didn't engage the enemy at long range with careful, strategic volleys. Instead, they attacked like a pack of cosmic wolves, moving in perfect coordination to isolate and overwhelm individual Devourer vessels. The first wave of human ships, sleek destroyer-class vessels that moved like silver arrows, tore through the Devourer advance guard with devastating efficiency. But what amazed Veltar wasn't their weapons or their speed. It was their apparent complete disregard for their own safety. Human captains threw their ships directly into harm's way to protect civilians they had never met from a species they had only just encountered. "Admiral," Veltar said, their voice vibrating with confusion, "your captains, they're sacrificing themselves for us. Why? We are strangers to you." Martinez turned to look directly at Veltar, and in that moment, the Zephyrian understood something fundamental about humanity that all their research had missed. "Ambassador," the Admiral said quietly, "you're asking the wrong question. The question isn't why we would sacrifice ourselves for strangers. The question is, how could we not?" On the main screen, Captain Chen's ship, the Retribution, had engaged 3 Devourer bioships simultaneously. Her vessel was taking massive damage, atmosphere venting from multiple hull breaches, but she never wavered. Instead, she used her ship's death throes to position a devastating torpedo strike that eliminated all 3 enemy vessels. "This is retribution," came Captain Chen's voice, now strained but unbroken. "We're going critical, but the job's done. Tell my kids I love them, and tell the Crystal folks they're safe." The ship exploded in a brilliant flash, taking a chunk of the Devourer formation with it. Veltar felt something crack inside their crystalline chest, not from the plague, but from raw emotion. She died for us. A complete stranger died to protect us. "She didn't die for strangers," Martinez said firmly. "She died protecting people under human guardianship. In our culture, that makes them family, and humans will do absolutely anything to protect family." The battle was escalating beyond anything Veltar had imagined possible. The Devourers, initially confident in their overwhelming numbers, were discovering that humans fought with a tactical brilliance born from millennia of warfare. More importantly, they fought with an emotional intensity that turned every engagement into a personal vendetta. "All ships, this is Admiral Martinez," came the fleet-wide transmission. "Remember why we're here. Those crystal folk trusted us to keep them safe. Every single Devourer ship that makes it past us is a betrayal of that trust. I don't know about you, but I've never broken a promise to family, and I'm not starting today." The response from the human fleet was immediate and chilling. Thousands of voices responded in unison. "Sir, yes, sir. Guardian Protocol 7 is in full effect. Nothing gets through." Veltar watched in amazement as human ships threw themselves into impossible situations, using tactics that bordered on insane. They used damaged vessels as guided missiles. They positioned healthy ships to absorb fire meant for crippled allies. They coordinated attacks with a precision that suggested every captain could read the minds of every other captain. But most remarkably, they never retreated. Even when vastly outnumbered, even when their ships were falling apart around them, the humans advanced. Always advanced. A massive Devourer biocruiser, easily 10 times the size of any human vessel, had broken through the outer defenses and was heading directly for the Zephyrian refugees. Veltar felt their crystalline form begin to crack with despair. This was it. Their species would be consumed after all. That's when the UES Prometheus moved. Admiral Martinez's flagship, which had been holding position protectively near the refugee fleet, suddenly accelerated to ramming speed. The ship was powerful, but compared to the biocruiser, it was like a needle approaching a mountain. "Admiral, what are you doing?" Veltar cried out. Martinez was strapping himself into his command chair, his face set in lines of absolute determination. "My job, Ambassador. Protecting family." The Prometheus struck the biocruiser directly amidships, its reinforced bow punching through the organic armor like a spear through flesh. The impact should have destroyed the human ship instantly, but somehow Martinez had calculated the strike perfectly. The Prometheus buried itself deep in the biocruiser's structure, and then every weapon system on the ship fired simultaneously from point-blank range. The biocruiser's death scream echoed across space as it dissolved into component molecules, but the Prometheus was trapped in the expanding destruction. "Admiral!" Veltar shouted into the communication system. Martinez's image flickered on the screen, his bridge now filled with smoke and sparks. "Ambassador," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him, "tell your people that humanity kept its promise, and tell them—" He paused as an explosion rocked his ship. "Tell them that this is what human protection looks like. We don't just drive away threats, we eliminate them so thoroughly they never come back." The communication cut out as the Prometheus was consumed in the biocruiser's destruction. Veltar stared at the expanding energy cloud where 2 massive ships had just obliterated each other, their crystalline mind struggling to process what they had witnessed. The humans weren't just protecting them, they were doing it with a ferocity and dedication that bordered on the divine. But even as Veltar mourned the loss of Admiral Martinez, they realized something that made their crystalline hearts sing. The Devourer fleet was breaking apart. Faced with human determination that bordered on supernatural, with warriors who fought like avenging angels and protected like guardian spirits, the supposedly unstoppable Devourers were retreating. For the first time in centuries, the monsters were running from something even more terrifying than themselves. Humans who had made a promise to protect, and who would rather die than break their word. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, Veltar stood in the medical bay of the newly constructed UES sanctuary. Watching human doctors work alongside Zephyrian healers to combat the crystalline plague. The irony wasn't lost on them. The Zephyrians had come seeking mystical healing powers, only to discover that human miracles were actually the result of relentless scientific determination and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the lead researcher on the Plague Project, emerged from the laboratory with exhaustion written across her features but triumph gleaming in her eyes. She had been working for 72 hours straight, sustained only by stimulants and what she called pure, stubborn human spite against anything that hurts innocent people. "Ambassador," Dr. Vasquez said, holding up a crystalline vial containing what looked like liquid starlight. "We've done it. The cure is ready for mass production." Veltar's form resonated with harmonics of joy so pure that several humans in the medical bay stopped to listen. "Doctor, how can we ever repay this debt? Your people have given everything for us. Ships, lives, resources. Admiral Martinez died protecting us, and now you've solved our plague." Dr. Vasquez smiled, and Veltar was amazed to see tears in her eyes. "Ambassador, you still don't understand, do you? This isn't a debt. This is just what humans do. When we see suffering, we end it. When we see threats to innocent life, we eliminate them. When we see a problem that can be solved, we don't stop until it's solved." She gestured toward the viewing port, where they could see the remains of the Devourer fleet being systematically hunted down by human Ghost Fleet vessels. The battle at Earth had broken the back of the Devourer hive, but humanity wasn't content with just winning. They were making sure the threat could never rise again. Captain Morrison's team just eliminated the last known Devourer breeding facility. Dr. Vasquez continued. Lieutenant Colonel Zhang's xenobiology unit has developed a bioweapon that specifically targets Devourer genetics. Commander Patel's deep space reconnaissance has located and destroyed every Devourer supply depot within 50 light years. We don't just protect, Ambassador. We make sure the protection is permanent. Through the observation deck windows, Veltar could see human construction crews working alongside Zephyrian volunteers to build something unprecedented, a permanent orbital city designed specifically for crystalline life forms. The humans had studied Zephyrian physiology and somehow designed living spaces that would actually enhance their guests' natural abilities. "The city will be ready in 6 months," came a familiar voice from behind them. Veltar turned to see Admiral Martinez walking toward them, very much alive, his left arm in a medical brace, but his eyes still carrying that same galactic depth they remembered. "Admiral!" Veltar's harmonics nearly shattered the medical bay windows. "You're alive! We saw your ship destroyed. We mourned your sacrifice." Martinez grinned, and Veltar realized they were seeing something rare. A human military commander genuinely happy. "Ambassador, rule number 1 about humans. We're very hard to kill when we've made a promise to keep. The Prometheus was destroyed, yes. But my crew and I evacuated to escape pods at the last second. Took us a while to get picked up from the debris field." The Admiral's expression grew more serious. "But I need to talk to you about something important, Ambassador. We've been monitoring communications across this sector of space, and word is spreading about what happened here. About how humanity responded to the Devourer threat." Veltar felt a flutter of concern. "Is this a problem? Are other species concerned about human military capabilities? Quite the opposite, Martinez said, his smile returning. We're receiving requests for protection from dozens of different civilizations. Species that have been living in fear of various threats are asking if they can come under human guardianship. The Crystalline Confederation wants us to patrol their shipping lanes. The methane breathers of Titan VII are asking for help with pirates. Even the usually isolationist cloud dancers have requested human advisors for their defense planning. Dr. Vasquez nodded enthusiastically. It's remarkable, Ambassador. All these species heard the same stories you did about human healing and protection, but they never understood the scope of what that really means. They thought they were asking for guardian angels, and in a way, they were right. Just not the kind of angels they expected. Veltar looked out at the orbital construction, at the human ships still patrolling the system perimeter, at the medical teams working tirelessly to distribute the plague cure throughout Zephyrian space. They were beginning to understand something profound about the species that had saved them. Admiral, Veltar said slowly, when our ancestors wrote about angels in the old texts, they described beings of terrible beauty who would appear in times of greatest need to protect the innocent. They said these angels would be fierce in war and gentle in peace, that they would heal with one hand while wielding judgment with the other. Martinez listened intently, his expression thoughtful. I think, Veltar continued, that our ancestors weren't writing mythology. I think they were writing prophecy. You're not humans trying to be angels. You're angels who happen to evolve on a world called Earth. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the stars where his ships continued their eternal patrol. When he spoke, his voice carried weight that seemed to bend space itself. Perhaps, Ambassador, but if we are angels, then we're the kind that understand something fundamental about protection. It's not enough to drive away the darkness. You have to make sure it can never return. You have to stand guard not just for today, but for all the tomorrows that follow. As if summoned by his words, alerts began chiming throughout the station. Communications Officer Reynolds appeared on the main screen, his young face bright with anticipation. Admiral, we're receiving a distress call from the Helix Nebula region. The singing crystals of Melodia Prime are under attack by something called the Silence Bringers. Apparently, they're a species that feeds on sound and music. Martinez's transformation was immediate and absolute. The gentle protector became something else entirely, a cosmic force of nature preparing to move heaven and earth to protect the innocent. How long until we can get a fleet there, Reynolds? Ghost Fleet units can be on station in 18 hours, sir. Full battle group in 36 hours. Make it happen. And Reynolds? Sir? Send a message to the Silence Bringers. Tell them that the singing crystals are now under human protection. Tell them that means they have 18 hours to leave that system permanently, or they'll discover what happens when you threaten something we've sworn to guard. The Admiral turned back to Veltar, and the Zephyrian saw something magnificent and terrible in his expression, the look of a being who had found their true calling. You see, Ambassador, this is what we do. What we've always done. What we'll always do. Somewhere out there, innocents are in danger, and that means humanity has work to do. Veltar watched through the observation windows as human ships began moving toward jump points, their hulls scarred from countless battles, but their purpose unwavering. These weren't just warriors. They were something far more dangerous and far more beautiful. They were guardians who would never stop, never rest, never accept defeat when innocent life was at stake. The galaxy had sought angels and found them, though not in the form anyone expected. These angels wore human faces and carried human weapons, but they possessed the most divine quality of all, an absolute, eternal, unbreakable commitment to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. As the last human ship disappeared into hyperspace, heading toward yet another battle against yet another threat to innocent life, Veltar realized that their species hadn't just been saved. They had been given something infinitely more valuable. They had been given the knowledge that somewhere in the darkness of space, tireless guardians kept eternal watch, ready to face any horror, overcome any threat, and pay any price to ensure that evil would never triumph over good. The angels had indeed come to the galaxy. They called themselves human, and they would never stop fighting for those they had sworn to protect.